Thanks for joining us here at Rose Quartz Mediumship Podcast, where we simply adore anything and everything healing and metaphysically based. I want to start by telling you that my heart is in a really tender place as I'm recording this podcast. And so there's a real chance that you may see some emotion bubble up in me as I tell this story. And there's also a real chance that you won't. Not because I don't want you to see it. I'm actually totally fine with you seeing the depths of my emotions. But if it doesn't bubble up, it's because it has been bubbling up all morning. There was a situation that happened for me in my personal life last night where I share a birthday with somebody who's important in my reality. And there was an invitation. I've always planned my birthday with this individual. And there was an invitation that was made about our birthdays. And I didn't feel considered in it. And so I didn't respond because I wanted to work through that emotion that I was sitting in. And so overnight, it kept rattling through my mind and through my heart. And this morning when I woke up, it was still there. I wanted to see the dynamic and the situation differently. I really did. But the truth was that I was feeling like I wasn't considered, that a plan had been made where I wasn't even asked what I wanted. And it hurt. It hurt my heart. I felt like I wasn't being considered. And I ended up speaking with the individual who I share a birthday with and just talking about how I was feeling. And they were not the one who had made the plan. And so they were just listening to me and holding space for how I was feeling. And I said, I want to feel different. I want to see this differently. I didn't respond last night because I want to see this differently. And I know I can. I know I'm capable of seeing this differently. I just haven't been able to yet. And the truth is this hurts. Like, it hurts. It hurts to feel like someone who's really important to me isn't considering me. That it wasn't even a consideration of what I wanted and what I desired for my birthday. And I talked about how I was feeling, and I was really proud of myself that I didn't make this other person the villain. And I didn't make myself the victim. And there are past versions of me that would have done that. I have no doubt. I didn't do that this time. There was no part of me that created a story that this individual was maliciously not considering me because I knew it wasn't true. I know that this individual has a beautiful heart and they weren't trying to not consider me. And that was part of where I was getting really stuck, was that there was incongruence between the experience that I was having and how I was feeling. And so I just allowed myself to feel not considered because that was the truth. I tried to talk myself out of those feelings. And if you've ever tried to talk yourself out of feelings, you know that it doesn't really work, right? You can shove them down and pretend that they're not there. But it's in feeling them that you often find the pathway to feeling different. And so I just allowed myself to feel exactly how I was feeling without making this other individual the villain and without making myself the victim, but simply being in the space in between where there was the truth of what I was feeling while simultaneously holding that there was no malicious intent, that this individual I knew without a doubt was not trying to make me feel not considered. And so I spoke with this person who I share a birthday with for a period of time and shared my feelings, and they held space and asked how they could help and said that they could understand how I was feeling. They did and said everything right. And eventually I said, I'm going to let you go because I'm not getting out of these emotions. I thought that the conversation might help me to process and feel different. But I realized I was still just looping in the same space of feeling not considered. And so I said, I'm going to let you go. And they asked, are you okay? I said, yeah, yes, and no, and yes, of course I'm okay. And so I sat in my kitchen and I cried, not just a little bit, like I was crying the whole time I was on the phone. And I cried from like a real guttural place, just cried and cried and cried. And eventually I decided I was being very inconsiderate of Mother Nature because I'd been through so many tissues that it was just unfair. At that point in time, I wasn't considering Mother Nature when I was using the astronomical number of tissues that I'd already been through. And so I decided the best place for me to go to cry was the shower, because you don't need a tissue in the shower. You can just cry. So I went to the shower and I just continued to cry and cry and cry and cry. And then I stopped. And it was the moment that I was really waiting for, because I knew that once I got over that hurdle of crying, that if I left space in the calm that comes after the purge of that big emotion, that a new thought pattern would come in for me. And that's exactly what happened. I was able to see the fact that this individual was actually considering me. That them making a plan without asking me about what I wanted for my birthday was actually them considering me. They were trying to make a plan for the two of us that share a birthday. And that's consideration. That's care. That's love. I wanted this individual to consider me differently, because this individual had a conversation with the other person who I share a birthday with, but not with me, which was where it had led me to feel like I wasn't being considered. A plan was made with the other person, and then an invitation was extended. And there was the option of like this day or this day. But there was not the kind of consideration that I wanted. I wanted to be asked, what do you want? What would be ideal for you? And because that wasn't my experience, I had decided that it wasn't me being considered. And you see, that's just not the truth. This individual had made a plan to celebrate me and this other person who I share a birthday with. That is consideration. That is love. And while I would have liked it to be a deeper level of consideration, it doesn't mean that it wasn't consideration. And so in allowing myself to feel like I wasn't considered and actually feeling it, like fully feeling it in my body, feeling the emotions of it, purging the emotions after I felt them, I was able to see how it actually was consideration. It might not be the way that I want to be considered. In an ideal world, of course, I would want to be asked, what do you want? With limitless options, rather than being told, here are two that have already kind of been predetermined. And so I sat with myself more and really allowed myself to ground into my nervous system and into my body that this individual had actually considered me. Because that is what I want programmed in my nervous system. And I can simultaneously hold the truth that I would like to be considered more deeply, but I don't want rattling around in my nervous system that this individual doesn't consider me, doesn't love me, because that's not the truth. And I knew it. I knew it from the moment that the text came in. I know that this individual loves me, and I know that this individual considers me. But I didn't feel that. I really didn't. Even though it was there. I couldn't see it because I was so stuck in what I wanted the consideration to look like, that I wasn't able to see the consideration that was there. And so after I got out of the shower, I sat in silent meditation for a period of time. And I realized that there was so much more to this story. That with this particular individual, there had been a situation 1.5 years ago where I didn't feel considered. And similarly, I was able to see that I was absolutely considered, not in the way I wanted to be considered, not in the depth, the way that I would experience consideration, but I was considered. And I had created a story in my mind and in my nervous system that this individual didn't consider me. And they do. And I can hold the fact that they consider me. And I can also hold the fact that I want to be considered more deeply. And so I could see how these two experiences were playing off of each other. And that my experience last night and this morning was magnified by an experience 18 months ago. And then I went for a walk for an hour, and I chatted on the phone with a friend about things that were completely unrelated to this. We didn't even talk about this. I didn't even bring it up. We chitty-chatted, had a lovely walk, a lovely chat. It was delicious. My body sweat like crazy. And it was not lost on me that I was purging energy. I mean, it was hot, but it wasn't that hot. It was humid, but it wasn't that humid. And I just witnessed my body purging this energy. And I got back and I drank some water and rinsed off. And then I felt like I needed to sit again. And so I sat in silent meditation. And then it hit me that I had made plans with a friend for today. And something that I'm working on is creating more of a work-life balance, because I work a lot of hours and I'm not in the kind of balance that I want to be in. So for me, taking a whole day off from work that I normally have a full day of clients took work. Not just to reschedule clients and move things, but also internally, because I'm out of balance. And so I had cleared my schedule. I had rescheduled people, put this on my calendar. And then they reached out and said, oh, I didn't realize they were the ones who picked the date. And they said, oh, I didn't realize that it was coming up on us so quickly, and I think I might need to reschedule. And in the moment of receiving that text, and this was more than a week ago now, in the moment of receiving that text, I felt not considered. Like, I had taken the time to reschedule clients. I had taken the time to block off my calendar. I had made this commitment because they had picked that date. They'd said that that was the date that would work best when I'd given them a whole bunch of options. And so it hit me that this experience that I was having this morning wasn't just about this individual around stuff with my birthday. It was also happening on the day that I was supposed to go do this with my friend. And it wasn't going to happen. And I had felt not considered. And so it was like I'd made a soup out of all the things where I felt not considered. It was just chock-a-block full of I'm not considered. And the reality is that my friend not putting it on their schedule and not blocking off their schedule and not doing what they needed to do in order to attend this commitment that we'd made. I can make it about me. I can make a story, right? If I want to, I can create the story, and I did, that I was not considered. And again, I didn't create it from a place of villain victim, but I still created the story that I wasn't considered. And I get to feel that way if I want to. But it doesn't serve me. Because the thing is them not clearing their schedule out so that they could attend doesn't have to be because they weren't considering me. Just be the way that they move through the world. And it had nothing to do with considering me. But if I make it mean that, then it's going to make me feel a way. And I don't want to feel that way. And some people would say, well, you're bypassing. You're emotionally or spiritually bypassing feeling not considered. But this is the thing. We will create stories in our mind that are based off of experiences that we've had. And we can create any story we want. If it serves me and the schemas that run in the background of my mind to say that I'm not considered, then sure, I can create that story. But if it doesn't serve me, if it's not the way that I want to live, if it's not the way that I want to move through the world, I can make it mean something very different. I can make it mean that that's not in their wheelhouse. It doesn't mean that they didn't consider me. And again, some people will say, oh, you're bypassing. No, we make meaning out of experiences that we have. We will take a small number of facts and we will create a story around them. And so I have the opportunity to create the story that my friend is not considering me. Or I have the opportunity to create the story that I was meant to take my kids and go on a little adventure. And then the universe knew exactly what it was doing. The universe knew that I needed this alone time with my children. And the universe got me to do it. Got me to block out my schedule and reschedule my clients. And that exactly what I was supposed to do was go spend the day alone with my children. rather than with my children and my friend. I can make whatever meaning I want out of the experiences that I'm having, and not from a spiritual or emotional bypassing standpoint. But we literally get to create the stories. And I understand that our nervous systems create the stories for us based off of what is stuck in our nervous system. And that's why somatics is so incredibly powerful at allowing us to create different stories. And it is so important to feel your feelings. You notice in this story, I allowed myself to feel not considered in its fullest expression. In its fullest expression, I bawled. I'm not talking a little bit. I'm talking like snot dripping down my face, hysterically crying, cannot catch my breath. I allowed myself to fully feel not considered. And when I did that, I was able to see that I was considered and that some things have nothing to do with me. But the stories that I create have everything to do with me. And I get to pick. And so I'm picking to be able to witness and observe the way that the individual did consider me about my birthday. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's not exactly what I want. But I can see the truth of the fact that I was considered. And the meaning that I'm making out of today. And not doing the plans that I had scheduled with my friend. I'm not making the meaning that they didn't consider me. I'm making the meaning that the universe had a different plan for me. And now I get to wait and see what the universe has in store. And so I'm going to hop off the podcast and I'm going to take my kids on a little adventure. And we're going to have to see what the universe has planned. I hope that you have a beautiful morning, day, evening, or night, wherever it is that this podcast is reaching you.